Welcome everyone back to weekly weather updates, and in today's video we're going to have the latest from the live radar as we are slowly coming to the end of this wintry period of weather. And although we've lost most of the risks now down to snow, we're actually going to see our coldest temperatures within the next 48 hours or so. Many areas, especially overnight tonight, that's Friday night, are going to be dropping down to -5 to -10. We did get to that in a few places last night, but it's the fact that it's going to be more widespread, and some areas -10 to even -20 degrees. There's a combination of still very cold, stagnant air, clear skies, something that we have struggled with a little bit through this colder spell, which has meant those really harsh overnight frosts have not been as prolific. Still been there, but just not those sort of -10 plus frosts. And of course, in certain areas, especially northern England, some parts of southern England and parts of Scotland, we still have some pretty deep snow cover, especially northern England and Scotland, and that will exacerbate those colder overnight temperatures. During the day as well, it is going to be really cold, and we'll see that on the latest UKV, but the big change will be coming Sunday through to Monday as we slowly see the milder air nudging in. It is already pushing in for the far southwest of England, for parts of the Republic of Ireland, but it is a very slow transition, and it won't fully clear eastwards until probably Monday, and even then we still have cold air trapped to the surface, so temperatures won't be that mild, still mid-single digits, maybe still frosts overnight, but they'll be much lighter, and by the middle of the next week we'll all be in much milder conditions as high pressure continues to control. Into the longer range, as we'll see from the GFS-GM, Eastern OF and the Ensemble, we don't really have any major regimes that look like they are going to dominate. Of course, high pressure is looking likely to dominate next week, but beyond that, into the second half of the month, we don't really have much of an exact idea what is going to take place. We're seeing lots of mixed signals. At the moment, no major signs of any very cold weather, or at least sustained cold weather. Definitely chances of northerly winds, northerly shots on the back edge of low pressure systems, and of course this time of year they can be very potent, but nothing too sustained at the moment. Most runs still have high pressure nearby, but are slowly starting to show a bit more mobility within the jet stream into the second half of the month, bringing the risk of some more unsettled conditions and potentially some heavy rain, and even maybe some heavy snow if we do see those cold air masses getting established once again. So do remember, if you enjoy my videos, make sure you like and subscribe, and remember to follow me on Twitter as well, the link's in the description. Now you see on the live radar, not too much going on the precipitation front at the moment. A few showers pushing in from the North Sea, but mostly staying out to sea and not really pushing inland at all. And that's because we're seeing very light winds as we are now under the centre of the high. Not got a cold airflow anymore, we've got cold air traps over the top of us, and those very stagnant air masses, that's allowing these temperatures to drop away very quickly. No mixing with any milder air at the moment. You see out the west, we've got this weak weather front that did give a bit of wintriness through the last 24 hours in some western areas, but it was nowhere near as intense as was forecasted a few days ago. And that's why we only saw ice warnings issued. We've got a bit more in the way of heavy snow here for parts of the Republic of Ireland and Northern Ireland. No warnings issued, and expecting this to fizzle out quite quickly, but already perhaps totting up here. Again, not expecting this to push further eastwards. As I said, the big headline is those overnight temperatures. Now, we're recording this a little bit later than usual, around 9 PM, and you can see in the west, blues and even a bit of yellow, indicating temperatures around sort of the low single digits or even mid-single digits. But you don't have to move much further eastwards, and it is exceptionally cold. It's not just Scotland or higher ground, it's from the far south coast all the way to the far north coast. Now you can see where we've got a bit of snow cover, especially across the far south of England. It's much colder than usual here, or much colder than we'd kind of expect. And comparative to areas further northwards, and that's because there's a bit of snow cover, again exacerbating those impacts. Central parts of England, of course, the further inland you are, the less sort of mixing you might have with some slight sea breezes. So again, temperatures already here down to -5, maybe even down to -10 into the early hours of the morning. And you can see over the higher ground in northern England, very cold, especially over the higher ground where we've got snow cover. And then of course up to Scotland, where we've had lots of heavy snow starting last weekend, and then of course persistent snow showers over this week, so many areas here have got a covering. Of course, add on the elevation and how close it is, how much closer it is to the colder air mass. And the Arctic, of course, temperatures here, this is where we could get down to -15 or minus 20. Exceptionally cold conditions tonight. Coldest temperatures potentially we've seen in many, many years. Again, I don't know the exact records, but the last time I was seeing these sort of pinks and purples on the charts, that was down back in, I think, 2021, where we had a very cold easterly wind. And of course, that was with a much, much colder air mass. That was, I think, got down to minus 14 degrees at 850 HPA. So that was exceptionally cold, and before that, beast from the east. So this is some of the coldest of homegrown air we've had in many, many years. And yeah, hopefully dissipating, though, over the next couple of days. Now, if you go over net weather, you can see the latest temperatures. These are the top 20, for today. And you can see some of them were early in the morning, some of them were this evening. So you can see we did get down to widely minus 5 to minus 10 this morning. And it looks like we peaked at minus 11.4 degrees. So in and around what we expected, around that minus 10 to minus 15. Of course, this doesn't cover every single weather station, just a selection that net weather have access to. But already this evening, you can already see 8 PM observations. Those are the last observations that were on this chart. Already quite a few areas, especially up towards Scotland, at Aviemore there, and then a couple other stations out in the Hara, of course, down at minus 17.3. That almost seems ridiculously cold for this time in the evening. I'd expect to see that maybe at 5 or 6 a.m, but at 8 p.m, that is pretty ridiculous. So I wouldn't be surprised if that's an error, maybe slightly colder than it should be, but at the same time, I am expecting to see temperatures like that come the morning. So maybe it is correct. Maybe we are on board for something even colder than minus 20. So you can already see exceptionally cold. I said expecting those temperatures to get to their coldest around that sort of 5, 6 a.m. So tomorrow's video, when we look at the today's top 20, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if the majority of those were minus 10 or lower. Pretty ridiculous. But of course, it is the coldest time of year. It is early January within a cold spell. This is kind of the peak perfect storm for snow and cold, as we've seen this week. Now, if we go over to the latest UKV, we'll be able to see that if we start on the precipitation, that we are going to slowly see that weak weather front in the west moving in, and it is going to slowly bring milder conditions. So that weather front doesn't make much progress through Saturday, really stalling out to the west, giving a bit of wintriness there in the north and west. And then as we slowly progress into Sunday, we start to see it pushing in, but it really struggles against that big block of cold. And in the far east, for east in England, we do hold on to those very cold temperatures. Further north and westwards, we actually start to see them subside through Sunday into Monday. But I said in east and south, just holding on, potentially even holding on into Monday, before eventually we do firmly see thick cloud and areas of heavy rain pushing in all the way into the middle of next week. We see the upper air temperatures are cold, but not exceptionally cold at the moment. It's just the fact that it's been so cold for so long. If we do take out Sunday, last weekend, we saw 10 degrees in some of the southern areas behind that big band of snow. We've pretty much now been in persistent 10 days of very cold air. And that's meant that surface temperatures, surface air is all very cold. And it just means that these very cold overnight temperatures are even easier to obtain. If this was the first day of this cold air mass, I wouldn't be surprised if we didn't get below minus 5. It's the fact that we've got snow cover, we've got clear skies, and we have got very cold air that's been trapped to the surface. And for many today, temperatures didn't get much above freezing, so we're already at a very low starting point. So all of that is adding up to making these exceptionally cold overnight temperatures. You see the air mass doesn't shift too much during Saturday, but slowly edges eastwards, and you can see it holds on to the far east into Sunday morning. And for most of Sunday, just clinging on in the far southeast for eventually into Monday. We're all in those milder air masses, but still could see some lingering chilliness there into the middle of next week. But, turning much, much milder there. As we head towards Wednesday, upper temperatures even into the double digits, which is, in contrast, very mild for the time of year. Now, to look at max temperatures, overnight tonight, as I said, expecting the temperatures widely down to minus 5 to minus 10. You can even see for central England here. Again, this is at a reasonably high resolution, but on a massively high resolution for these sort of temperatures. You can even see southern England minus 5 being shown in and around London, especially at the countryside, minus 10 to minus 15 over those spots across northern England that's seen some heavy snow and big snow cover, and same sort of minus 10 to minus 15 across Scotland. Again, wouldn't be surprised to see minus 20. If you do go back to right now, which is 8 p.m, lowest temperatures we're expecting is kind of minus 4 to minus 6, and we're already seeing well below that. So expecting it to get much, much colder into the morning. And temperatures not expected to get much above freezing until around lunchtime, where we do see temperatures maybe 2 to 4 degrees. But I suspect that is overdoing it. I do suspect if we see a bit of cloud building in, temperatures could stay even colder. Into Sunday morning, a frost still developing in many areas, but not quite as cold, more around the 0 degree mark. Far east getting down to kind of -3, -4, -5 once again, and that's because it clings on to that very cold air mass. Sunday afternoon, still very chilly, not getting much above freezing where we've got those snow cover in the north, but elsewhere 3 to 7 degrees, still cold, but turning milder. Potentially a little overnight frost there into Monday, but not expecting anything too massive, and by Monday afternoon, starting to turn milder, 5 to maybe 10 degrees, and Tuesday into Wednesday, maybe, or into Tuesday first, maybe a slight overnight frost in the southeast, but then through much of Tuesday and Wednesday we do start to turn generally milder. Still the possibility of an inversion, perhaps in the far south, but we're expecting things to turn much, much milder for the next sort of week or so. Now, if you look at the longer range charts, you can see the high pressure system in control at the moment. It doesn't look a particularly cold chart, but because that cold air is in place, it is going to remain exceptionally cold. High pressure holds on for all of next week, and then look at this. We start to see a bit of mobility, but it's not really dominating in terms of the high pressure. We are, in terms of low pressure, high pressure is still controlling. Yes, losing its strength significantly there to the last week or so of January, but not too much going on before that. I think we'll have to wait and see exactly how this does play out, but very interesting to see this development at the moment. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see those longer term prospects. As I said, no major signs here of significant cold, but the possibility of some colder snaps, and as we'll see from some of the other runs in a minute, there's not much agreement. So yeah, not got too much confidence in this overall pattern. Very much still up in the air for the final sort of 10 or 12 days of the month. Now, if you look at the latest GM, again, high pressure building in, dominating for all of next week, and then eventually we do see a little bit more mobility, and as I said, risk of something colder. Look at this, a very sharp northerly wind pushing in there, exceptionally cold air mass trying to rush in. Again, it wouldn't be sustained, it wouldn't be dominant, but definitely seeing snow, and definitely see those temperatures plunging. So again, just shows you what could happen if we did see a little potent northerly wind. There's no big block towards Greenland, so we wouldn't expect this to be sustained at all, but nonetheless, it's still very interesting to see and just shows you little agreement as we do head into the middle to second half of the month. And then finally, we compare to the ECMWF, again, high pressure firmly in control. Beyond that, eventually we see some low pressure breaking through, but a very weird, unusual pattern to our north. And then look what happens towards 360 hours. Really elongated area of low pressure stretching from Greenland and northeast Canada all the way towards Italy, across the North Atlantic. This sort of chart I've never really seen before. Very bizarre, with a big block stationed kind of towards Scandinavia, out towards Eastern Europe. This would be a very unusual chart. Cold air pooling out into the Atlantic. Sort of a milder wedge across much of the UK, Greenland, Scandinavia. Again, it's not massively mild, but compared to usual, it is pretty mild. And yeah, a really unusual chart. So again, very little confidence in those longer range charts. And then finally, we look at the latest ensembles. Very cold the next couple of days. Big warm up into next week before it slowly starts to drop off beyond that. And that's when the massive uncertainty comes in. Very similar from the latest ECMWF, pretty much exactly the same. So again, not a lot of confidence in that longer term prospects, just lots of scatter. We'll wait and see how it does play out next week, but it's going to be turning much more settled, much less disruptive, but still got some very cold temperatures over the next 48 hours, so do stay safe out there. So anyway, thanks for watching, hope you enjoyed, discovering new, and I'll see you again for another video soon.